All right. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, getting into the and a Happy New Year, prosperous New Year. We'll try and help you out here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel. And it's our bowl preview. It's the playoff time now. No opt outs here. They're playing for keeps. This is the one that everybody's trying to get to. And after the first four games on college campuses, we're set for the quarterfinals. Now, neutral sites moving forward. Let's start off with New Year's Eve night, Cotton Bowl, Arlington, Jerry's World, and the Ohio State Buckeyes, defending national champions from a year ago, but coming off of a loss again, heading into the postseason. They are 9.5 and 42 over the Miami Hurricanes. And Paul, I guess defense is when you talk with these two teams. And Ohio State just ridiculous numbers defensively all season long, and that's after losing a lot of guys as well. So kind of picked their spots when they asked of their young quarterback Julian Sagan. And in Miami, although it was extremely windy at Kyle Field down in College Station, and that really did affect the passing, but Miami's defensive front pretty much controlled that game. And if anything, with the place kicking that was erratic, it looked like Miami should have won by a little bit more handily, a little bit or more comfortably than having to get an end zone interception to stop the last drive. So it's a double pick for you, Paul. You like a side and a total of the Cotton Bowl between Miami and Ohio State.
Yeah, I sure do, Jimmy. First of all, make no mistake about it. Defending national champion Ohio State, clearly an outstanding football team, but the Buckeyes, they're not invincible. I mean, you look at the games that they had this year against the two best defensive teams on their schedule to this point. In their opener, they scored just 14 points against Texas. That was Julian Sayan's first career start, to be fair. And then in their regular season, not the regular season finale, but in their last game, the Big Ten championship game against Indiana, they mustered just 10 points. The Buckeyes, their main problem in those games, just an inability to run the football effectively against either Texas or Indiana. The Buckeyes averaged less than 2.5 yards per carry in both those games. Looking at the opponents in those previous two games, Texas on the year against FBS opponents, they allowed just 3 yards a carry. Indiana allowed just 3.1 yards per carry. And the reason that I bring that up is Miami is in that same ballpark. They only give up 2.9 yards per carry to opponents this year. Obviously, the Buckeyes passing game, Julian Sayin, he has developed through the course of the season as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. And they've got a deep receiving core, to put it mildly, filled with NFL prospects just brimming over. So they are going to provide and pose matchup and other problems for any opponent. However, if the Buckeyes cannot establish the run, the Canes might be able to just pin their ears back and put that fierce pass rush, on the Buckeyes. One of the top sack teams in all of college football is Miami. They have 41 sacks on the year. Akeem Mesidor, the leading sack man for Miami, with 8.5 sacks. Reuben Bain, just one sack behind at 7.5. Both those guys expected to be early round selections in the upcoming NFL draft. I felt like 7 in this game was really a good number. I felt like it was the right number, maybe 7.5. But I think the line maker, I think he just expects, and rightfully so, there to be public action on Ohio State. They are the defending national champion. They are a very public team with obviously a large amount of support. I just think the numbers are a touch too high. I think it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be a dogfight. I like Miami plus the 9.5 points and the under 42 in the game against Ohio State.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Beck though for Miami. Now he's capable of making plays, and he is capable of making mistakes. When the game was on the line, they went to the basic. I mean, just a give right up the middle. That was the big play to set up the game-winning score for Miami down in College Station. So they kind of took it out of his hands. Again, the conditions were very, very tough to throw the football in that game in College Station. But how do you think they'll pick their spots or kind of lean on the experienced quarterback to try and make some plays here?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously have to throw the ball some, Jimmy. You can't just, run the football against Ohio State.
Right,
They're
right.
they're too good. I don't think Mark Fletcher is going to as good of a back as he is. I don't think he's going to have probably the same type of production that he had against Texas A&M. I think again they're going to have to depend on the true freshman Tony to make plays in the return game on offense. I think they're going to have to just try to force it into a defensive game, try to at least push the turnover battle. Put Carson Beck in favorable positions. I think they've got to keep him off balance. I mean, they know the game better than I, but they got to throw the ball on first down some. I think that might put them in some tough, 2nd and 10 situations. But they got to throw the ball some on first down to try to get some of those chunk plays. And they got to play sound defense and they got to protect the football. But I think they, again, Ohio State's a very, very good football team. But they're not, again, there's not a team, even of these remaining 8. It's a very balanced, in my opinion, field of 8 teams that are left. And none of them are, without blemishes and warts. They can all be beat on a given day or night. And I think Ohio State certainly is, a team that faces a tremendous challenge in Arlington come New Year's Eve night.
All right, players who place a college football bowl game wager of at least $10 will receive a $50 50% profit boost for any bowl game. Offer is available once per day of a bowl game. See the app or their app for more details. Get that a little bit. Get the cobwebs out after the holidays. Let's move on to the first of our triple header on New Year's Day. And Oregon Ducks are 2.5 and 52.5 at the Orange Bowl down in Miami. This is a dual play for both of us. And boy, a team that Paul, you have been high on since the back of the summertime with Texas Tech. Oregon, I saw right around a pick, a point either way, but the early action has been on the Oregon Ducks coming off of their win. Now, we did get that one right with the first half a line in the Oregon game, and they gave up the back door to James Madison. I guess the $1 million question is that Oregon giving up all of those yardage, mostly in garbage time. Game had been decided. I'm not overreacting to that, and a lot of people a little bit suspect of Texas Tech's schedule. Man, any team they've beaten, they put ahead of them. They've beaten. They've only lost one game to Arizona State, and that was when Levitt had probably his best game of the season, 75-yard touchdown drive to win it with 2 minutes to go in the game. And so, but Texas Tech did not have their starting quarterback for that one. Boy, another one that Dan Lanning said he was going to go to Oregon, build this roster from, it's a line of scrimmage roster. He has. A lot of coaches talk is cheap. He's backed it up. But Texas Tech, man, with the roster that they have brought in, they have experience. They got that just physical defense, and yards are stingy. And their offense is a little bit better than some people give them credit. I like the Texas Tech Raiders. I already gave it out as my pick to win the national championship at the price, because the price was much more inviting than teams like Ohio State and Indiana. Paul, you like the Red Raiders as well here?
Yeah, I tell you, Jimmy, when I look at these teams, they're dead even on paper. It's just difficult to distinguish which is the superior overall unit. I believe Oregon's familiarity with the big stage, the big game, coupled with the fact that it's conference, the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships, obviously, while the Big 12 has struggled in the playoff format in recent years. I think those are the primary reasons that Oregon widely opened as a small favorite and has taken some action, boosting it all the way to a 2.5 point favorite this morning at Bet Rivers. Both these teams, man, they have no clear weaknesses. They're equally adept on both sides of the ball. In fact, looking at some key team statistical categories, Texas Tech and Oregon both rank in the top 10 when you count just FBS opponents and probably all opponents. But looking at just FBS opponents in those games, Oregon and Texas Tech are in the top 10 in scoring offense, total offense, scoring defense, and total defense. They are the only 2 teams remaining of the 8 standing teams that can make that claim. So that shows you the balance that they have. Both these teams enter with a 12-1 record. Oregon lost by 10 30-20 to Indiana at Alton Stadium back on October 11th. Texas Tech, as you mentioned, they lost 1 week later on October 18th at Arizona State, 26-22. And you mentioned the fact that their quarterback Bayron Morton did not play that game. He was out with a knee injury. So, man, when they've been at full strength, they have been a tough out. And I, again, when I adjudicate their body of work, their entire body of work for the 2025 season, I look at three games or three marquee games or showcase games, whatever you want to call them. That September road game at Utah, and then the two games against BYU. The first one, of course, the regular season meeting in Lubbock, and then their most recent game, the Big 12 championship game there in Arlington. They won those three games by a combined margin of 97-24. None of those games were closer than 22 points. And this Texas Tech team, I think they're kind of lurking in the weeds, so to speak. I think, like you mentioned, teams in the 8-team tournament at this point are getting a little more recognition, a little more play at the betting window. But Texas Tech is a fundamental team, really play great defense. Obviously, historically, in the last quarter of a century anyway, when you think Texas Tech, you think all offense, no defense. But this is one of the nation's top defensive teams, and they play so fundamentally sound. They play their keys. They don't get out of position, and they tackle, which a lot of teams nowadays don't tackle that well. Texas Tech is a good tackling football team. Like you, Jimmy, I like the Red Raiders plus 2.5 over the Ducks.
Love the way the Red Raiders hit and wrap. There is no doubt about it. They are fundamentally sound and really, really good team. Number one in the country in rush defense as well. So just a lot of gaudy numbers for that Texas Tech. And maybe because they just had been around in so long. I mean, they just won their first outright conference championship in 70 years or so. So, I mean, Indiana still, the team just the betting public still warming up to them to a degree. Vanderbilt has been another one they've been slow to warm up to. So, but maybe because it's been such a long drought. But moving forward, they're not going to surprise anyone because in the NIL transfer portal era of roster building, they are a major player. Log into your Bet Rivers account each day for a college football playoff game to receive a same game parlay profit boost valid for any college football playoff game. See the app for more details at Bet Rivers. Let's go to the Rose Bowl. And the Rose Bowl has finally gotten off of that 5:20 or 6:20 Eastern start. They're going to kick off a local time around 1 o'clock in Pasadena when Indiana takes on Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Indiana and their fans are excited. There's no doubt about that. Alabama is hanging on, and you just wonder how long they can kind of hang on to this kind of for lack of a better term, just a little bit of a lucky streak, so to speak. So Indiana 6.5 and 48. It was at 7. Right now it's at 6.5. I like the Hoosiers here, and it's just the Alabama's inability to run the ball has put a lot of pressure on their protection and has put a lot of protection on Ty Simpson. With everything that Ty Simpson has gotten, I mean, his numbers, he has earned them. He's got weapons, but he has got to do it a lot on himself. Man, he was getting popped like crazy in the Iron Bowl against Auburn. They were outgained by 140 yards in that one. I'm not going to overreact to the conference championship game. Kirby Smart has made a living of crushing everybody. It was 1-7 against Alabama. That's why I like Georgia in that game and thought they had a little extra in a tank for that one. But against Oklahoma again, it was a role reversal where Alabama deserved to win the first game at Bryant Denny. This time they got all the breaks. And fourth down, where Mateer could have run for a first down. I don't blame him for passing. Had a guy wide open. He drops the ball. Could have been a possible touchdown there. The pick six right before half. I've seen punters miss snaps before. It's rarely miss. So I see a punter miss the ball from his hands to his foot. That happened as well. So many things fell Alabama's way to come back from 17 points. We'll go back to Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia with 2 red zone turnovers in that one. Just a lot of things have happened for Alabama. Pick six against Tennessee, 100 yards, kind of flipped the scoreboard to 14 points right before half. LSU does a very poor job of clock management before half. It gives Alabama an extra possession. All they had to do was run the ball. That's 7 points. That made that 11-point win a little bit more comfortable. It could have been a lot stickier. And so on and on we go. DeBoer, I respect him. He's a big time coach, and his record against ranked opponents is it's not where it is because of luck or just a good stretch of luck. He doesn't hesitate when he decides on fourth downs or 2 point conversions, and his percentage is way higher than normal. And he said every time it seems like he puts his quarterback in that spot. All this with Simpson, with all that he puts on his shoulders, and he's only in his first full year of starting. I think he might lean toward coming back for another year. The scouts at the NFL certainly value more starts at the college level. But I just think that Indiana, it's all starts with running the ball and stopping the run. And there's no doubt they are better. We talked about Texas Tech being number one against rush defense. Indiana's number two. And so they can stop the run. And this is a better roster than the one that really couldn't stand up, match up front with Notre Dame in that game in South Bend in the first round. They've taken that extra step. They've upgraded at quarterback as well. And when they've needed a play, he's been there for them. Oregon, he throws the pick six that ties the game. He engineers a long, sustained game winning touchdown drive. They fall behind in Penn State. The last 2 minute drive with the miracle catch in the back of the end zone. That was a much tougher Penn State team than maybe what we saw against Northwestern and UCLA during the year. So I love this Indiana team. They're more deserving. I know it's role reversals for as a team that started out with the most losses in college football history. Northwestern owns that lead now, but Bama is just not typical Bama, and they have bet Alabama, whether it's Florida State, whether it's Oklahoma, whether it's Auburn. They have bet them, bet them, bet them. They've been massive public team. I think that's keeping this line low as well. Give me the Hoosiers minus 6.5, Paul.
Yeah, I'll tell you, as odd as it is to say out loud, Indiana is clearly the superior team over Alabama, heading into this game. And when this game opened, I was going to jump on Indiana, and I just kind of paused. And I'm not on the other side yet, Jimmy, but the more I think about it, and you've probably got the right side, but we're going to give Alabama 6.5, might even get to 7 points at some point. The big bad Crimson Tide of the Southeastern Conference, and I'm a little bit concerned about the role reversal that you mentioned, the fact that Indiana carries the burden of being the betting favorite, plus their quarterback. Fernando Mendoza, this is his first game since winning the Heisman Trophy back on December 13th. And of the 5 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks to play in the college football playoff since it began back in 2014, only one of those, Joe Burrow of LSU back in 2019, went on to win the national championship. Alabama, man, they have been good as an underdog this year. They ended Georgia's 33-game home winning streak back in late September as a 2.5-point underdog. You mentioned the Oklahoma game in the playoff, fell behind by 17 points, rallied to win that game 34-24, closing as a 1.5-point dog. And a key injury here that concerns me on Indiana's side, their defensive end, Stephen Daly, who is by far their most disruptive force in the front seven all year long for the Hoosiers, 19 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. Of course, he was unfortunately lost for the season in that post-game celebration of the Ohio State victory in the Big Ten championship game. They needed touchdowns, as you mentioned, to win, late touchdowns to win at Iowa, to win at Penn State. And, one of us will be buying the other dinner here because I think I'm not going to officially get on Alabama yet. I'm going to kind of wait and see if 7 shows up again, and maybe I'll take that if it gets to 7 for sure. But I can't blame you for like in Indiana, because if a man would have the day that Kirk Cignetti showed up in Bloomington, if you had bet the Indiana Hoosiers each and every game between then and now, you would have a pretty nice stash of cash somewhere, depending on how much you bet. So you can't fault a man for taking Indiana, but I just wonder how Alabama is going to respond to being a touchdown underdog to the Indiana Hoosiers.
And DeBoer, said he's good in great game management, but you cannot deny they are not as physical as what they were in
No,
Nick Saban.
right.
They are more finesse oriented, and that's his style of coaching. But their attention to physicality is just not it's not close. I mean, an Alabama team not be able to run the ball like that is startling.
I was going to make just one more, just a little note here that kind of underscores what you're saying. This is clearly not the same level of Alabama team at either line of scrimmage that we saw during the glory years under Nick Saban. Alabama's been an underdog 3 times this season. In the previous 10 years before this season, they were an underdog a grand total of twice. So twice the previous 10 years, 3 times an underdog this year. So that tells you probably all you need to know right there about the point you're making.
And, I don't know when's the last time they've been a touchdown underdog as well. It's, been quite some time. So, let's move on to the last of the triple header down in New Orleans and, be drivable distance to New Orleans from Oxford and Athens for this one. So, an SEC matchup in SEC country, and Georgia now at Bet Rivers 7-56, and under the awkwardness of the Ole Miss staff, being at, being employed by LSU, half of them, and LSU's interim staff, and they're headed to Ole Miss, so it's just been really odd, an awkward deal. But welcome to the world of Lane Kiffin. He usually leaves a lot of awkwardness around. So I don't know if you caught his Texas Bowl interview, but speaking of awkward, but nonetheless, Ole Miss did allow every other coach besides Lane Kiffin to coach in their playoff game. And although they destroyed Tulane, there was a little bit of clunkiness in that because the Green Wave defense did not exactly test the level, the fluidity of the execution and offense. So just maybe a tick off, but you couldn't really tell against Tulane. But I've seen this Ole Miss team go to Athens and compete with Georgia already. I have to give it. Georgia is an improved team. Kirby has developed his talent. He has the highest percentage in the league as far as you know, the fewest transfer players on his two deep depth chart. So he is he's got a little continuity in his staff, and that lends itself to development over the course of the season. But again, I saw Ole Miss go into Athens, tough place to play, and listen, man. First 5 drives were scoring drives in that one. And then finally, Kirby, kind of similar to what he did in the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma in that national semifinal against Baker Mayfield in the Sooners, got out of that zone and man stuck an extra guy, an extra safety in there, and played man on the outside and made him beat him. He's got guys to cover. He did the same thing. They went from 5 scoring drives to 3 and out, 3 and out, 4 and out, and ball game. And Ole Miss didn't even cover between the hedges against Georgia. But again, playing on neutral field, a little bit closer drive for Ole Miss. Certainly, the novelty is there. And yes, they want to prove that they don't miss Lane Kiffin in the biggest of ways. So I just really think that Ole Miss can play with this team. I look for a really, really competitive game and just a little bit confused on how big the line is. But Georgia is the traditional power. They're the regular participant here. Ole Miss is all new for them. We're not going to go, crazy over the win and cover against Tulane. But Ole Miss is my pick here, +7, Paul.
Yeah, I don't want to go so far as to say that it seems like some people are dismissing Ole Miss's chances against Georgia, but maybe I should. It sort of seems that way. You don't hear a whole lot of buzz about this game. I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion in some people's minds that Georgia's going to win this game, but I see where you're coming from. By now, first of all, everyone knows that Lane Kiffin has left Ole Miss following the regular season to accept the LSU job. Defensive coordinator Pete Golding has been named as Kiffin's replacement. He'll coach the bowl game and continue to coach the Rebels into the 2026 season and beyond for however long that journey lasts. With the large notable exception of Kiffin, you noticed that you indicated that much of the coaching staff, even the ones following Kiffin to Baton Rouge, are still on board for the playoff run. So they do have that continuity. That includes offensive play caller Charlie Weiss Jr. I think that's extremely critical. I was adamant leading up to the Tulane game. I was adamant on, I think, on this show and maybe some others, that Kiffin's absence wouldn't have any impact. And the reason I didn't think it would have any impact against Tulane, and it didn't, was just that there was such a class difference. I mean, you or I, not to knock Pete Golding, but anybody could have coached Ole Miss to that victory. I mean, you just rely on your staff and you just stand there. You don't even have to do anything, and you're going to beat that Tulane football team. I think here, a closer game, obviously against a high caliber opponent, it could make a difference. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out against Georgia. In the second half of the season, there weren't many teams playing any better than the Dogs. You mentioned the first game. I mean, Ole Miss for three quarters took care of business, leading 35-26, entering the fourth. You mentioned the defensive changes. Ole Miss's offense was unable to produce anything in the final quarter. Georgia wins that game 43-35. The Dogs, though, and I think you touched on this as well, they have been mortal away from Athens at times this year. They needed overtime at Tennessee in September to win that game. They were on the ropes clearly at Auburn. Looked like they were going to go down 17-0 late in the first half. A controversial call kept that from happening. Georgia dominates the second half and wins that one. They needed a late touchdown in Jacksonville to defeat Florida. And then in the regular season finale in Atlanta against Georgia Tech, only beat the Yellow Jackets by 7. So it's not like they've been just steamrolling people, even as they've improved. I'm not on Ole Miss yet, but it's Ole Miss or nothing in my mind. I think people are selling the Rebels a little bit short here, and again, I hadn't got on it yet, but need to think about it and probably pull the trigger here soon because I think this game might be closer than many are anticipating.
All right. So Georgia -7 in 56 right now for the last of the triple header, the last of these four quarterfinals. We've got more bowls to talk about. Have those a little bit later, and we'll continue and get through the entire college football season, including the semifinals after these quarterfinal games and the national championship game in late January as well. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Yott. We do it here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel, brought to you by our friends at Bet Rivers.